This is the third of our roundtables we've been holding for the Transport Committee, and the third one's with Tom Kearney, who's known to many of us a long-standing bus campaigner, really strong campaigning on bus safety issues since really 2009. And we wanted to get your take on some of the issues, but firsthand, we get lots of submissions and things, and actually to really chat with you about some of the issues. You're recording it as well for a film you're making, so just so everyone is aware, it's just being recorded by Holly, who is a film student at UCL, so welcome Holly as well. So if I kick off with just a general overview, actually let's do introductions first, that's very rude of me, I should have done that, so Caroline Gidger, Chair of the Transport Committee. Let's start here.
I'm Caroline Russell, I am a member of the Transport Committee.
I'm Keith Prince, I am also a member of the Transport Committee and Deputy Chair.
And I'm David Curtin on the Transport Committee as well.
I'm Richard Berry, and Security Manager for the Transport Committee.
I'm Georgie Wells, I'm Assistant Manager for the Transport Committee.
We've got a few people in the audience who support the committee as well, who are observing, so welcome everyone. Thank you, Tom, so much for coming along today. What I wanted to kick off with is a real general question. What do you think TfL's priority should be for delivering a safer bus network?
Thank you very much, Caroline. That's a very good question. I think your priority, certainly since 2000, since July 2000, since it was founded, is to deliver buses that run timely and are available. Because apparently there was a time in the United Kingdom where buses were not reliable, and now they are. And this is very politically very important, but also it's important to have a bus service that's timely and reliable, because that brings more people onto it. And I appreciate that my issue with buses are a bit like my issues with the NHS Mid-Staff's Health Trust. I love the NHS, I just don't like the NHS Mid-Staff's Trust. And what I'm focusing on is buses are actually crucial to the operation of London, and they're absolutely crucial to the transport network. The issue, I think, that we have is a system that is fundamentally unsafe. And I think this was absolutely evidenced by the International Bus Benchmarking Group information that TfL did not issue for public consumption, but TfL is being compared to 15 other world cities: Paris, New York City, Vancouver, Sydney. These are big, and this is big process data. And since 2007 to 2014, so it's a pretty substantial period of time, London ranks #1 in terms of punctuality, perfect, they've achieved their goal. And in the top quartile, I think #2 in terms of profitability per bus. So their buses are on time and profitable. But in last quartile, in terms of speed, which means they're punctual, but they're slow. And also in the last quartile, #11 out of 15, in terms of collisions. And that, to me, very much underscores precisely what bus drivers have been telling me for years, which is that this is a system that is absolutely skewed toward delivery of a bus that's on time and profitable for its owners at the cost of safety. And it's a city that is getting increasingly congested. And if you look at those contracts, and this is something, Caroline, that you and I have been going back and forth with mayors, is asking specifically about contracts with safety. And this year, or last year, they announced they're going to update contracts after 17 years of running buses to include some sort of safety requirement. And that pretty much shows you where their priorities are.
So the priority is delivering them on time, making a profit, rather than enough safety checks within the system.
With a caveat, in an increasingly congested city.
Yeah.
So when you're running something that's on time, those on-time requirements have not really changed.
Okay, let's get into some specifics. Caroline, do you want to?
Yes, I want to look into the situation for drivers, so driver fatigue and stress. And we've heard that fatigue is a serious health and safety concern, and it's regularly raised by bus drivers. We've had bus drivers in here to talk to us about health and safety and their concerns about driving tired, inadequacy of brakes, you know, the shift patterns that keep them working for, you know, a long time. So do you think that drivers are supported to do their job safely?
No.
And, okay, that's blunt.
Categorically no.
Okay, so what, in that case, what do you think that TfL and the bus operators can do to reduce driver stress and fatigue?
First, TfL doesn't have a bus operator's license, so it is not the operator. This is, I believe, it creates a different set of potentially dangerous situations. But TfL, not being the operator, has no legal responsibility for the behavior of a bus driver. However, it does have contracts which have terms which it enforces. So in principle, as the primary contractor of the service, and it's enforcing contracts that have requirements that affect behavior, then it obviously has direct influence over their behavior, but it doesn't drive the bus. It doesn't have an operator's license. So I would argue, and this is bus drivers certainly, the excess waiting time requirement, running time requirement, called headway requirements in buses, which for the last, 10 years have afforded buses to be on time and available, put incredible pressure on bus drivers. This is what Bus Driver X called a cascaded responsibility. You have commitment to contractual ideal, and the responsibility for its enforcement flows down, and the benefits from that enforcement flow up. Bus driver wages, which constitute 60% of the cost of running a bus, is a bus driver wages. So there's huge pressure on costs being reduced. That is bus driver wages. And then secondly, the EWT requirements, which are 100%. I mean, a bus company can make up to, or lose up to 10% of its contract value per quarter on the basis of an EWT target. So absolutely, bus drivers have full responsibility for and the force of basically carrying out the EWT requirement. And they then bear the full cost or responsibility for not making that. And there can be two ways of not making that, achieving that target. One is speed through red lights, speed up at junctions, run fast between runs to try to catch up and make you eat highway, or hit somebody. Those are pretty dangerous choices, but those are choices that bus drivers have to make all the time.
Sorry, you're saying they have to, I mean, the hitting somebody might come as a consequence of speeding up.
Or lose their job. If they're deemed to be bus drivers that consistently miss headway targets and consistently are late for whatever reason, or behind the targets, they lose their jobs. And that's what they're risking effectively, is they make the headway target or risk their job. And they will always, inevitably, this is human nature, you're not meant to do, I mean, these are not, these jobs are important to these people.
So, are you saying that you think that the bus drivers are under excess pressure to meet those headway targets?
Or lose their jobs if they don't.
And so that is building in systemic risk, risky driving behaviour, such as speeding up to get through a light.
What you end up doing is you take a view, am I going to risk losing my job? I've already been warned, I'm going to lose my job and miss the target. I'm under huge pressure from my controller, who's told me I'm behind the target, I'm behind that way. Am I going to amber gamble? Am I going to just skitch through that red light and make the target? Am I going to, and they do that all the time.
So do you think that there is a way that TfL could be taking that risk out of the risk that is provided by this excess waiting time requirement, the headway requirement?
Well,
could they take that out of the system?
Sure they could. And then what TfL would say is that buses wouldn't run on time. They would say that people would complain that their buses weren't normal, they weren't running on time. That's what TfL pushes back on. This is a discussion we had with Leon Daniels in September 2013, when I asked him that it's very clear that speed and headway are causes of death, and he responded, if we put safety first, buses would run slower. We were there at that meeting, September 18, 2015. And I was aghast. This is someone who basically said, we are willing to gamble with people's lives in order that buses are reliable.
So for Transport for London, what they should be trying to do is to make sure that safety, maintaining safety and safe driving, rather than headway and punctuality and speed, that they should have a different weighting in the contract.
Well, let's look at their incentives. The bonuses they're paid have excess waiting time as one of the key indicators, and their bonuses.
Sorry, for the bonuses for the operators.
No, for their own bonuses.
The drivers.
No, TfL managers
TfL managers.
have excess waiting time as one of their key performance indicators.
So it's at every level.
Every level.
Managers, operators, not
And
drivers particularly.
Drivers can be, you can lose your job if you don't make
Yeah,
that way.
they're not all, yeah.
So their outcomes slightly more binary. But TfL managers, the actual, if you look at the executive bonus that they're paid every year, and look at the KPIs, excess waiting time is one. And they say they have casualty reduction, but it's only general, not specifically for their own fleet.
So you're saying then perhaps that if excess waiting time was taken out of the TfL management bonus system, but perhaps casualty reduction got put in there, that might create a different culture.
True, but let's look at one thing. If you're going to base any road that is sharing space with cars, taxis, people pushing prams, people on wheelchairs, cyclists, if you were to put in any time requirement on that vehicle performance, you're going to create a system that is inherently more dangerous because they are sharing the road with other road users. And anything that disassociates that road user's responsibility from duty of care and focuses on something completely different, which is profits for whoever is employing it or their own job, you're going to create a dangerous system. Now, it's not just TfL bus drivers. This is an example of a state system, which is state contracts having private companies do it. Private companies do it all the time. Delivery companies, Amazon, all these people, they have to deliver a certain amount of package, a certain amount of time. HGD companies working with construction, they have a certain number of requirements. And anything that is road-based and has a time-based or delivery-based requirement is absolutely putting death before safety. That's a fact.
Okay, do you want to bring the next section?
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to ask you about driver training now. And do you think bus drivers are provided with enough training to do their job safely?
Well, let's look at the discussion on the 2nd of February, Groundhog Day, as we say in America. We heard the discussion that bus drivers are required to have 35 hours of training over 5 years. It's 1 day a year of training, and over 5 years in order to maintain their competent driving certificate. Now, that certificate, as I understand, is not London-wide. It's actually each company determines what that requirement is. So, again, there are no standards here for training. And what constitutes training? London is very, very happy to push this program called Hello London. And now I've heard £6.5 million, I guess it's probably a lot more because you have to pay for 2 days off for each bus driver, 24,000 bus drivers. I figured the cost of Hello London was about £10 million. I'm just ballparking here, but it's about £10 million. Now, my understanding, talking to bus drivers, because I get a lot of feedback from them, I'm being followed by or in touch with about 3,500 bus drivers, so a little more than 10% of the bus fleet. So I think that's a statistically significant sample, at least in terms of from all the companies. And they felt that basically Hello London was absolutely not safety focused at all. It was basically a 2-day jolly. They said, we understand why, we understand. In fact, I would argue the positive externality was complete, to be honest with you. Not a waste of money, but it wasn't, I guess customer relationships are important. is that bus drivers were able to meet a lot of other bus drivers from other operations. And the first time, there is not a lot of, other than people that are active in the unions, there's not a huge amount of cross fertilization. So that's the first time they actually felt they were in touch with a lot of other bus drivers. And that was positive. But again, and that counts as 2 units of training out of 5. And I just think that anything that, like I said, it's not unimportant, but it doesn't really count as operational safety training. And that's one issue I'm concerned with. There are lots of other issues that are important, but operational safety performance to me is the thing that is suffering an absolute requirement here. This is what I'm trying to achieve, is that is the focus.
That's something that bus drivers will do as an ongoing sort of continuing professional development, if you like. But what about initial training? Do
You mean the 60 days of training? And
do you think that's how
6 weeks? No, I think the concept you can become a bus driver in 6 weeks is unbelievable to me. I mean, if you look at and more importantly, the whole issue with constant maintenance of their health and safety. There was a bus driver, 51 years old, driving a bus, who just suffered a heart attack and died. This was a 221 bus I just read about. His mates were quite upset that he was in the bus driving when he suffered a heart attack. The health situation with bus drivers to me is chronic. If you have chronic stress, you have rotas which don't take any account of human conditions, and you're working them 40 hours doing that, you're working them 12-hour days. And we read as well, bus drivers have to get to and from their jobs. And they have families, they have life problems like the rest of us. And the concept of these people showing up and being overworked, overtired, after being trained for 6 weeks in a job. And then the second thing about training is quite interesting, and this is from bus drivers. They're not trained in central London. They're trained in the outer suburbs. And then the first day, they say, "Welcome to Tottenham Court Road." And the bus drivers are blown away. And the bus drivers also say that they are instructed to expect to crash the bus. This is normal. Serious. This is normal. This is because you're expected to get a few deaths. Not to worry. Again, safety culture. Now, the railways in the United Kingdom used to be like this. I mean, this is a fact. I mean, you'd lose 60 to 80 people a year falling out of trains. Things can happen. And it wasn't until the Colour Commission, and this was 2000, after Kearney, it changed the culture, but it took a long time. 2008 until 2016, there were no train casualties in the United Kingdom, no fatalities. And then obviously until the Croydon tram crash, which, interestingly enough, was being managed by the London Bus Service, London Service Transport, not by the railway people. So I think the critical issue here, and what I'm trying to push for, is the safety culture within the bus just is not on par. And there's no excuse for it, because rail did this, airlines have been through this, maritime has been through this. And I think we as citizens and as residents have a right to expect our public authority to act with the same duty of care, and we'll really learn from those very sectors that manage to do it.
Yeah, I mean, what's particularly disturbing about what you just said is that, the instruction that, bus drivers should expect to have some collisions. I mean, that's not something I've heard.
But this is a casual acceptance. I mean, if you listen to even what people say publicly, they'll say, well, 49% of all fatalities in the last 7 years have been as a result of 2 bus operators. 49% will account for 36% of the total bus fleet. So already that should be ringing alarms. And then when I asked TfL that question, they say, oh, they operate a lot of intercity routes. I think to myself, so they're expected to kill? That's normal? And that's exactly the casual attitude to safety that is absolutely manifest within the transport world, and certainly at the highest levels of management.
Well, you talk about changing the culture, to get it aligned with what the train culture is now. How do we do that?
Well, I would argue that I did an atypical. I suffered, as you know, near-death experience being hit by a bus. And what inspired me to start campaigning was the fact that there was no data about people being killed. Lots of reports, but no data. And I thought to myself, how can anyone make a decision about safety if they don't even know how many people they're killing or injuring per month? And we obviously, in 2014, with the huge help of Victoria Borwick and huge help of Caroline, we managed to get TfL to start publishing this data every quarter. But the data itself, if you look at it, is extremely primitive. And Caroline, even third quarter data, the first time we're publishing data showing the bus garages that are involved. To me, it was very simple to ask that question. If you're a bus driver, your culture evolves from your garage. And certain garages, it's not just bus companies. Certain bus companies have different attitudes to safety than others. Fact. If you just look at the way the collision per bus, certain bus companies perform very well and certain companies do very badly. But it's also bus garages. If you look at specific garages, outperform their others. And I would love that TfL actually published the information and actually analyzed it. But none of the data they publish is just out there, just spat out and say, you deal with it. And I thought to myself, they have this data. Why aren't they doing anything with it? Why aren't they telling anything? Why aren't they learning anything from it? But as the International Bus Benchmarking Group data shows, an organization that has this information and refuses to release it is hiding something. Period. This is not an agency, state agency that is acting in the public interest. And that has been my suspicion since day one. And I've been a director of a UK public company, I've been a director of mines in different parts of the world, and I'll tell you, I am familiar with the behavior of management that is trying to hide safety. And they are trying to hide their safety performance. And this international bus benchmarking data, to me, was absolutely the smoking gun.
I'll just come back a little bit. I'll just come back a little bit towards training. And obviously, you say the 6 weeks initial training and 1 day a year, perhaps doing Hello London.
And remember, the 6 week is not in central London. It's not in dangerous areas. It's outside.
Yeah. But what could TfL and bus operators do to improve the bus driver training?
It's a good question. This is where I think Wayne King said something very interesting. No one talks to the bus drivers, so we're not familiar with a lot of these programs because none of the bus drivers inform it. Again, the thing that I find most amazing, and this is a very good book by Matthew Syed, Black Box Thinking, which he focuses on, yet the information in organizations about safety performance should also come from below, people at the bottom, so to speak. But I mean, that's the thing I don't understand, is that any collision is the function of two things: the brain behind the wheel and the brain that's being hit. And it's very important that any system understands why was the person behind the wheel making the decision he did at the moment of impact, and why was the person being hit making the decision at the moment of impact. And in a city that's incredibly congested, when you're taking away more time from crossing, when you're creating more obstructions for pedestrians, and then you're creating a situation where the bus driver is focusing on making his time target, and more importantly, can't see on the left-hand side of this bus. The near side, they can't see. It's basically driving blind. This is a fact. I mean, the bus drivers report their mirrors don't work, they can't see. They're also in a perspex container, they can't see. At night, forget it. If it's raining, they can't see. Why are these things occurring? And I don't know how much training you can do to say, we're going to have you drive blind in one eye, meeting time targets with no sleep and no break, and having to go to the bathroom. Go for it. I wouldn't want that job. So if you want training, talk to the bus drivers. They may tell you how they think they can be better trained. But one of the issues the bus drivers are saying, train us in places where people are getting hurt, instead of training us in soft areas.
Do you think a London-wide scheme would be an improvement on what's happened? London-wide training standards? Perhaps taking into account what you said, that everyone should train in the areas where people are getting hurt, and down Oxford Street, down Tottenham Court Road as well.
I like the off Oxford Street.
Yes.
It's a little issue with me. Actually, one of the things you mentioned, London-wide training scare. London is 25% of the United Kingdom's bus fleet. Okay, it's a big chunk. And it's not, in TfL, through certainly through very good activism from the London Assembly and from this humble campaigner, has managed to, is the only bus fleet in the world that has access to confidential incident reporting, is the only bus fleet in the world that reports its monthly or its quarterly casualty data. These are huge results, and they shine very positively. If London were to turn around and say, not only do we want this, we want a London training standard that, and more importantly, it's more than just 7 hours a year for 5 years. This is substantial. More importantly, it's driver-led. It's not company-led. It's not TfL-led. It's driver-led. And this is the thing that I find most important, is that drivers want to lead this discussion. They don't want to kill people. They have no desire to kill people. And there are very, very simple things that can be done to create a better environment for them. One is pay them for breaks. 2, give them access to toilets at both ends of their route. Number 3, give them some place to get something to eat, getting a cup of coffee instead of making them stand out in the rain for their break. Treat them like human beings. When they receive this training to become a bus driver, 6 weeks, there are some bus companies that require them to pay back the training, and they take it out of their paycheck. Seriously, this is, look, I come from the United States, and the colony of Georgia was established as an indentured servitude, and this is indentured servitude. The concept that you would take money out of a paycheck to a bus driver, which is not, this is not a dripping roast of a paycheck, to pay back their training. And the bus companies last year collectively took home, this is based on just the data of the year 2015, took home 135 million in profits on a 2 billion, let's say, budget. So that's not an insignificant profit margin.
Is that just London?
Just London. These are just the London bus operators, the ones I can find. So that is a total ballpark picture. But it's 7%, let's say, margin on running buses. So this is not, you look at some of the bus companies made substantial. The interesting thing is their correlation between how much profit they took and their safety record. Well, just a little fact, the company that made the least amount of money had the safety record. Just throwing it out there as a fact.
Yeah. Just one more question for me. What would you feel about bus drivers learning how to do first aid, having first aid training?
Look, I hugely appreciate first aid. It was a kid, 16-year-old kid in the Duke of Edinburgh's program saved my life. So, because he learned first aid. So he saved my life. And I think everyone should learn first aid. We've all learned first aid in my family as a result of me being saved by it. My son did the Duke of Edinburgh's program for that reason. Hugely important. I think everyone should learn it. Does that have anything to do with operational safety performance? No. But everyone should learn it.
Yeah. Maybe that's something for the education panel.
I think it's a very good
Rather than for the bus company.
I just don't think it doesn't change the way the safety system operates.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Lovely, thank you, David. Karen,
Yes, I want to pick up on passenger support, or it's the post-crash response. We've had Sarah Hope come to give evidence to us, and the Sarah Hope line that has been set up, which I think is about trying to make sure that there are avenues for communication between the families of people who've either been killed or very seriously injured, and TfL and other areas of support. And first of all, what was your experience after your crash in terms of the engagement with Transport for London or with the bus company?
Again, I think it was my treatment that pretty much inspired me to campaign. I was struck by the bus on Oxford Street, traumatic brain injury, coma for 2 weeks, brain bleed, pierced liver, 2 collapsed lungs. My family was over here to watch me die, and as my dad said, if you want to hurt an Irishman, hit him above the neck. So I did okay, and Kearneys have tough skulls. But I remember sitting in the hospital with tubes in me, looking at the ceiling, and said, when are the cops going to come? When am I going to talk to someone? Never came, never spoke to the police. So, nothing. TfL, forget about it. I have never met anyone from Aruba, ever. The bus company was involved, which has interesting spot in the safety record. They were one of the two companies responsible or involved in those deaths over the last 7 years. They were one of the two, the 49%. So I don't know about the safety culture of the organization, but I would say their people culture is not very good. But I think more importantly, I think what Sarah, this is a bit like first aid. I think victim support is usually support. I don't think that's anything to do with operational safety performance. I'm not saying it's not necessary or vital. It absolutely is, and it's very humane. Since TfL doesn't have the license, they're actually ideally posed to do this, and I think it's a role that TfL should do. I think the important thing is, look how TfL is performing in Croydon. Now, I read the Croydon Advertiser. I'm a big fan of that local newspaper because it is doing a brilliant job of covering, I mean, in the most humane, decent way, covering the victims. Samantha Booth and Tom McIntosh are doing just an incredible job of talking to the victims and reporting back, covering the investigation. So the reason why the Croydon tram crash is so important is one, it was the company itself, First Group has a long history, I don't know, centered by spot. It was Peter Henry's baby. Actually, Val Shawcross was the council leader at the time when the tram started. It's ancient history, but it's important because it's tied into buses, not rail. I would argue that. So look at the rail accident investigation boards investigation. Look at the way TfL is behaving. But more importantly, look at the safety flaws in the system. Because the London Bus Services Limited was effectively the manager of it, not rail. I would argue that manifest safety problems within the tram mirror those within buses. But then second, look at the investigation. In fact, that's why I said this year, you can't say 12 people versus 14 last year is a reduction in bus deaths, because you have to take the 7 tram deaths. That goes into and the way I look at it this way is that back in the 70s, I remember people were being poisoned by taking Tylenol. And Tylenol, this is the reason why you have safety things on all caps of medicine. It's because someone tampered with Tylenol and they're killing people. And if TfL doesn't learn from the Croydon crash and apply it to its bus operation, it'd be like saying, we're going to put safety caps on Tylenol Extra, but regular Tylenol, we're not going to do it. And that's the thing is, the Croydon tram crash is hugely important. To me, it could be a game changer for safety operations. But look at the way it's being. We know more about the Croydon tram crash right now than we know about the 68 collisions a day in London, 2 of which involve pedestrians, 1 involving a cyclist. We're talking hundreds of thousands of bus collisions since 2007, and we know more about what's happening in the Croydon tram. And we know more about the Croydon tram versus the bus in 2008. And those, I mean, to me that's unbelievable, because you have a system, the rail system, which learned about safety performance, learned about safety culture. And again, Wayne King said something hugely important at the Groundhog Day presentation, which was, if you want safety culture to extend to buses, you have to engage with the drivers. And my experience, having worked with them closely, is they absolutely embrace the safety. They want, do you know why? Because they're humans, and they want a job they can be proud of. They want a life they can be proud of, and more importantly, they want to kill them.
Can I just take us back into that post-crash response, because this is something we spoke with the bus operators about, and whether the insurance and responsibility situation after a crash actually prevents the bus drivers from being at all humane.
I mean, there is a huge issue with insurance. And I think there's a slight degree, that's a bit of an easy way to get out of it. A couple of things. One is take victim response away from the bus companies. Absolve them. They don't have to deal with it. It's TfL. It doesn't have the bus operator license. So TfL, like I said, is absolutely well placed for this service line. I would argue it doesn't have anything to do with operational safety and performance. It is important and humane, but it's a bit like first aid. And it's absolutely necessary, but it shouldn't be included in the bus safety budget. And secondly, in terms of, this gets into investigation with insurance companies. If you look at TfL, as you know, doesn't investigate any bus collisions. In fact, they don't even receive copies of reports that we've learned about us twice over the last 4 years. And now, what I find very interesting is that the people that investigate bus crashes for bus companies are the insurers. People that are absolutely incentivized not to find any blame on the company that we have to pay out to. Now, the one thing you should know is that 48% of the road traffic justice unit, police unit, is paid for by TfL. So I'm not saying the Met is corrupt or I'm not saying that, but I think there's inherent conflict of interest if the unit that is looking at whether a bus is culpable is paid for by the very agency that contracted it. I just throw that out there. To me, that smells of something that could be potentially problematic. Number two, a lot of people who are investigating bus crashes for the insurance companies, for the bus companies, are retired police officers. And again, I know people have to have jobs, and they have to have jobs, they have to be public service. I have nothing against that. I do have an issue with that I would argue that one should look more closely at how this occurs.
Sorry, how what occurs?
There's a conflict of
those
interest.
get the jobs.
There's a conflict of interest if the investigation by the bus company to determine safety and fault is paid for by the bus company. What happened with rail is you have the Rail Accident Investigation Bureau. It's independent. It's not run by an insurance company. It's independent. TfL is outsourcing that to the bus companies, which is outsourcing to its insurers, which have, I would argue, a material interest in having outcomes come a certain way. If you kill someone with a car in London, there's a 35%, this is road case, 35% chance you'll be convicted of something. If you kill someone with a TfL bus, which has 10 times the killing power of a car, there's a 13% chance you'll be prosecuted. 1-3. And about a 2% chance you'll be convicted. So, you do the maths. That's just a statistically interesting occurrence where something with 10 times the killing power of a car is being prosecuted a fraction, infinitesimal fraction of that vehicle. And TfL, there was a report by Lily Manson, 2 PACs. They have 4 times the casualties with pedestrians than should be according to their basic position in traffic. So if you have 4 times the casualty generation in a class of vehicles, again, there's all kinds of things that harken back to the safety of the system. And I think one of the issues that I find most problematic is that since I really began to actively campaign in 2012, I'm a one-man show. Why isn't anyone at TfL doing this? Why isn't anyone in the mayor's office doing this? I mean, I'm a one-man show. That to me is the screaming statistical indicator that if you have to depend on volunteer services of a bus crash survivor to move your safety agenda, and it's $2 billion a year versus me, who are less than a few billion a year. I just think that's so hard. I mean,
You've silenced us, Tom.
sorry.
Okay. Keith, do you want to do the next section?
Thank you. First of all, do you think that TfL are making incident investigation more rigorous and transparent?
No, imperative. I think, again, we have a conflict of interest. We have an entity that is the contractor, regulator, and manager of service. More importantly, the former managers of that public service then become the managers of the actual contracted service. And I just think that revolving door is just too much. I mean, I was getting these wrong letters from David Brown. Victoria Borg was getting wrong letters from David. Like, this is when I started. Like, I said, this guy's the head of buses? He doesn't do anything. And then he becomes the head of Go Ahead Buses, which are 25% of TfL buses. And he leaves Leon Daniels' job to become working for Leon Daniels. I just think that's just stinks. Sorry.
So I take it from that you do not feel that TfL ensure all incidents are properly managed, reported and investigated?
They don't even get copies of the insurance companies of bus drivers' investigations. That's been proven twice in the last 4 years. I mean, the fact that there's nothing that's been learned there. If you look at this international bus benchmarking data, TfL is not getting any better. This is a static performance. So no, they're not learning anything. More importantly, I would argue they're wittingly not learning anything, because it disproves their £28 million a year public relations narrative.
So clearly you do think that the process for reporting incidents could be improved. Could you give us some suggestions of how you think that should be?
Well, it's a good question. One is looking at the question, the issue of incident reporting itself.
I think in there, could you actually perhaps give us your thoughts on the confidential incident reporting?
Sure.
As well?
Okay, well, there's two things. One is, like I said, it is my firm belief, and after years of campaigning, that bus drivers want to change the system. They want it to be a safe system. There's a culture of fear within bus companies that punishes bus drivers for basically reporting safety. We know the case in 2014 where the bus crashed in Chelsea, and the driver took the view that the bus malfunctioned, a drive-by-wire issue. TfL teamed up with the bus company to prosecute the bus driver for dangerous driving. The judge threw it out, and the bus drivers that supported the bus driver at the court of law were fired. And then their case was thrown out by being unlawful. But I think to myself, it's really scary. Instead of learning from the incident, the unintended acceleration incidents, which last year there were 2 a month. TfL blames the bus driver for those occurrences every single time. And I just think statistically, if a bus is just running away and you assume the person behind the wheel is professional, capable, knows what they're doing, then this is not a normal occurrence. Now, we've had people look into it, transport specialists look into it, and it's clear there's all kinds of issues. I mean, if you look at the buses that were just recalled, at 5 miles an hour, the back door wasn't working or stopping, there is something wrong with that model, fact. They just have withdrawal buses, there's something wrong with it. And drive-by-wire is more problematic. And one of the things I've asked for, thank you, Caroline, and I would like to see if it happens, is on these bus collision data we're getting every quarter, to list the bus model as well. Bus garage, bus model, and what do we learn from it?
Yeah.
Now, again, why isn't anyone in TfL coming up with this? It's too strange to me. So yes, I think there's a huge issue with reporting within bus companies. Now, lastly with Cyrus, I campaigned for Cyrus back in 2014. When I found out about it, I thought it was brilliant. I worked a lot with railways in the United Kingdom, did a lot of work. So I'm familiar with the rail culture, and I have huge respect for it. And here's a perfect example of something that's so simple. If you're an operator of anything, then it is your interest to know if dangerous practices are occurring. It's just good common sense, good business sense. And what I found most peculiar about this is when I proposed it, or I didn't, Bus Driver X proposed it, TfL fought it. They fought it for months, saying it wasn't necessary, blah, blah, blah. Finally, what happened, then it got delayed for months, basically a year before it actually happened. It's now Cyrus is in operation, but what I found, two things. One is I've heard from bus drivers, they don't like it because the mechanism is that bus companies pay for it. So it's not me to say, but I think the relationship between the bus operators and the bus bus drivers is complex, so they don't trust anything, even if they think it's independent. Secondly, and I've seen written confirmation of this from bus company documents, that they are telling bus drivers they have to report to the bus company first and decide. And that to me is just, that goes against the entire
Can I
spirit.
put something to you, actually? Because to me it struck me as being a fundamental flaw. Before, as you quite rightly say, before they report the incident to Cyrus, let me just say what I'm going to say, and then tell me you can rip me apart whatever you want to. But what I understand and what I heard was that bus drivers being told that before they can report it to Cyrus, they have to report it to the bus depot. Well, clearly, if you've reported that the number 36 runs somebody over, if you then do a report to Cyrus to say, well, I'm worried about an incident where someone got run over, that Cyrus go back to that garage, it doesn't take a genius to work out who did the reporting. So where's the confidentiality?
No, but what I'm trying to tell you is that is completely wrong. That's not true. And the fact that the bus companies, I've seen the documentation, the fact that they're telling bus drivers that is an outright, that is a lie. Cyrus exists independent of the bus company. They more point exist as a first line of contact, not last line. There are no hurdles getting to Cyrus. That's the whole idea behind it. Now, it gets.
So what you're saying, it's not like an ombudsman for government where you have to go through the.
There's no.
That's being presented to drivers.
What I'm saying is true. What you're saying is it's incorrect.
It's not even incorrect. The bus driver, it's only incorrect. Cyrus never put that forward, but Cyrus exists purely as a first line of defense, if need be. The idea what Cyrus said is, look, we exist purely to improve safety performance. That's what we do. And we are indifferent to whether or not the person's gone through 17 people or no one. You give us a call and we will protect your identity and report it. Now, if bus companies are telling people that they have to go through hoops, jump over hurdles to get to Cyrus, that's a lie. That's just wrong. Right. And what worries me the most, again, it's a curious situation. This is Cyrus is the first time it's actually operated on a road. So bus companies have a different safety culture. The management of bus companies have a different safety culture. Now, these bus companies in London, which have Cyrus extended for bus drivers, all have Cyrus for their rail operations across the UK. You know, these are big global companies. They all have their rail operations, and not one of them, regardless of ownership, state ownership, community ownership, shareholder ownership, not one of them extended to their bus drivers outside of TfL. And that shows to me, and this is why I drafted this bit of legislation for the buses bill. I'm trying to convince Andrew Jones to accept it, which is to extend Cyrus to all bus drivers nationally and take responsibility out of the hands of the local transport authority and just make it something. And like I said, and this is what makes no sense to me. Like I said, I've been a director of a public company in the United Kingdom. I've been a director of a mine. And it's been in my interest to find out what's going on and more importantly take actions, because if I don't and I let these things fester and continue and someone dies, I go to jail. At least that's true in the mining industry. It's not true in the bus industry, but it's true in the mining industry. And it's true in the railway industry, it's true in airlines, it's true in maritime. So like I said, I love the idea of London Standard, and I think London has done some very good things, primarily through the scrutiny and influence of the Assembly and some eager campaigners. But these things could crystallize into something much more profound on a national level.
So finally, do you believe that Cyrus is actually promoting bus drivers? No, I've got first-hand information to that. Like I said, there's a lot of information I would love to talk about, but I haven't free time. I have more free time than I should for the bus safety issues. My family's getting kind of tired of it. No, it's not. It's not promoted to bus drivers. And we even heard, obviously, Wayne King speak that it's not. Now, I would like to see our team make extension of bus drivers, Cyrus to bus drivers nationally,
part of the national platform. I haven't seen anything similar from Unite, but since Unite obviously represents bus drivers. Now, also Cyrus was not extended to first group tram operations in Croydon as well. I think it's very interesting that bus drivers had it, but tram didn't. And I think, again, it goes to this whole concept of, you know, like I said, why is there no one at TfL? Why is there no team of people at TfL? They're spending now, officially announced after months of denying, or actually over a year, of saying what their budget was. If they're spending 32 million, so £6.5 million a year, remember, 28 million pounds for PR. I don't know how much they're spending on I don't know what, on the board spots, for example, but £6.5 million a year on safety. How much is that going to safety? Sarah Hope lines, great, that has nothing to do with safety. I think it's important to be made, but if that's included in the budget, then that doesn't count. First aid, I don't know. I mean, there are lots of things, lots of training. I mean, I'm sorry, Hello London, that's probably a great thing. But one way to make bus drivers more pleasant for customers is to actually give them good hours, good working conditions, make them feel like they're appreciated. And this is the issue that I find, I mean, having been on the receiving end of contempt for a lot of time. Look, I even wrote to Garrett Powell. I don't know him. I wrote to him post. I've never heard back, and I don't expect I will, which is typical. Last time I wrote Leon Daniels was 2014, at a meeting he didn't want me to come to. He told people, don't go to Tom. So I thought to myself, the amount of contempt I've gotten from TfL as a victim, and that certainly echoed by Sarah Hope, 7 years before Metro Line said sorry, and that was only because the mayor intervened. And Sarah Hope's driver went to jail. So, I mean, she actually got an outcome which most people don't. And this is why I think Sarah Hope being so brave and so outspoken on proud of her, because she represents someone who actually got the best outcome could be expected from the system, which was the bus driver was actually convicted. But absolutely treated with contempt by the system. I've been treated with contempt. And look, you know, based on what I found, I return it back with a smile on my face.
Okay, let's move to another section. Pete, do you want to pick it up?
Sure,
It's got
yeah.
to leave now.
Okay.
There's some useful stuff.
Thank you for that, Tom. It's very helpful, actually. It's about monitoring bus safety, and TfL has 2 data sets. There's a Met Police data set. It's one of those. And according to TfL, they do monitoring on a regular basis, although it actually says here 1,700 assessments is completed, astroids are completed each period. So we don't know what the periods are, but do you think there are gaps in this monitoring?
Oh, of course. I think, look, I mean, classic ones is the woman who was actually in Islington 2 years ago, was hit by an Arriva bus in Islington. She was an Olympic athlete in 1992 Olympics. And on the karate team, she lost her leg. Leg's gone. It was reported in the TfL collision data as pedestrian error, but not in the stats IT data. And it's just like, you could lose a leg and not be picked up. But it's just, this kind of thing happens all the time. Now, my issue, I think, is a little more fundamental. TfL has data on every Oyster card that gets used. They have data on all this stuff. There's all kinds of big data stuff. It seems like this should be the kind of thing that they should be actually doing themselves. I mean, the concept they're outsourcing their investigations to insurance companies, they're incentivized not to find anything. The fact that they're outsourcing data collection and maybe analysis, but there is none, to entities which they have no control over or anything, which just to me is unbelievable. This is, like I said, there's a great quote, which is, ignorance is not lack of knowledge, but an unwillingness to learn. And this is TfL. This is an organization that refuses to learn. Over 200,000 bus collision incidences in the last 8 years. And we know more about what happens in Croydon than we do on those. And that to me is the most classic example. And this the Cullen Commission showed, you need to have leadership. You need to have leadership among the companies, you have leadership in the institutions doing the hiring, and there is no leadership there. And the fact that Garrett Powell, I'll probably never meet, because he never responds, the fact that he said we just can't get the data on the people that are killed by our buses, to me is just, despicable. The fact that Tony Wilson couldn't name the number of people that have been killed by his buses, again, shows the casual approach these people to have. They're happy to take profits from public money, happy to explain how much they're doing. And when it comes down to knowing how many people their operation is actually killing, that's just not good.
Very cool. According to data, the Stats 19 data, the long-term trend in relation to bus incidents over 10 years is on the way down, but apparently there's some discrepancy between that and other data. What's your thoughts?
Oh, it's a classic example is if the institution that is collecting this information is in no way connected to the actual instances, then already a suspect. Secondly, yes, the number of discrepancies I find between what's reported versus what actually happens, and it's the nature of life. But like I said, put the responsibility for gathering this data, interpreting it, and more importantly, publishing this data in the hands of people that are directly impacted by its failing. And no one has lost their job at TfL. No bus contract has been removed from any bus company for increases of death every year. In fact, 2012 saw a huge surge in the number of people killed and injured by buses in London. You know why? Because we have the Olympics. And I thought to myself, that was the excuse, that you invite people into your home to spend your money and entertain, and you kill more of them. And your excuse is there were more people here. And that to me is that is the attitude of this institution.
So, just for clarity, you're saying put responsibility in the hands of the people responsible for space. Exactly who do you mean by that?
I mean surface transport. If surface transport, your pet, or more importantly, put someone in charge of surface transport in terms of operational safety. There's no one.
So you're saying TfL should have a person,
a chief safety officer.
a chief safety officer whose
For
responsibility is for one, obviously gathering the data, and then actually doing something with it.
Manage it, obsess about it, and actually understand it and derive some meaning from it. More importantly, influence.
Possibly someone like yourself.
Well, I just throw that out there as an idea.
Yeah.
But no, they need to have a chief safety officer that has
That cares.
And more importantly, doesn't go to sleep at night. And I don't think anyone should be taking a vacation while this is going on. I don't think anyone should get a bonus while this is going on. This is a failing system. And what this IVG data shows, it's been failing for years. And that's why we don't want to publish it.
Thank you. Last quick question is bus.
As long as you want. No
Yeah, we will all have got there by then.
I'll still be here talking.
Bus technology. Realism, there's lots of different innovations out there. We've got iBus 2 coming, quiet engines, which are good, but also have some challenges. Other collision avoidance sort of technology. Are you aware of particularly good features on perhaps different bus models? And what other things do you think TfL should be piloting in this sort of area of new technology?
I think that a lot of issues with bus technology is the most important technology is the human brain. It's taken millions of years to evolve. And 2 eyes, many years. The person behind the bus has the most important technology. And that's the technology that's happening. No one's downloading information from that. No one's listening to these people. When I have classic ones, if they do a big traffic design and redesign the place. And I get from the bus driver the WhatsApp, they didn't talk to us. We would have told you these. There's so much human behavior these people are observing. No one talks to them. This is,
Very basic.
The bus drivers are a huge source of positive, life-affirming information that can improve safety performance across the city. Not just for cyclists and for pedestrians, but for everyone. They witness the way people behave, and And there's the taxis as well, by the way. It's the black cabs.
Yeah, black taxis.
But are again a huge sort of, I would argue sometimes too much wisdom. And they're not always right, but they are a source of wisdom. They add and they watch. So
But it's true, I mean, I've seen them that design these junctions, you just can't get around.
Yeah.
Or a coach, you can't get around.
yeah. And then they change it to lighting, and then they're on pressure. But the point is, the bus drivers can tell you a lot about the way things behave, not just at a particular junction, but at specific times as well.
Yes.
To say this is when kids are out, and our basic head weight indicators remain the same, and there are kids around at this time. And like I said, what has been taken out of the system, this is really what it comes down to, is we have a machine that is running the system. Time and all the human feature is gone. And that's what it comes down to. This is why you want Sarah Hope's line, because you want humane interaction. You want some feedback into why things are happening. This is why you want to talk to bus drivers, because they are the human mind.
Aside from the drivers, we absolutely get that. We did do a roundtable conference
Sure.
with drivers, so we did get a lot of information from that. But are there any
Others?
technologies
Sure.
that you know about that you think
Yeah.
should be piloted? This is really good. We should go in buses.
I don't think there's anything that really needs to be new. I think you could change certain things. One is there are ways you can reconfigure existing CCTV cameras on a bus to capture when they jump red lights. It's automatic, boom. Or when they amber gamble, boom. And you'd be able to find that out immediately. That's one of the first things I'll do is reconfigure so you can actually have stamping out signals passing danger, something the railway industry did after the crash at Paddington. Huge issue. And this is what I know that people like Leon Daniels will dispute me about jumping a red light or speeding up a yellow is not a signal passing danger. It is to me. And I don't care if it's the same as a railway, it's the same thing. And signals passing danger is a huge issue. I see it all the time with buses. I see it all personally, but the bus that hit me was running red. Okay, so I know the personal consequences of that. Secondly, enhance iBus to include bus safety alerts. You can have a situation where it says low bridge or things like, I realize there's not too much interference you want, but some basic things that and the bus driver expert wrote a lot about this. You could actually have some little things on there. The other thing is iBus communication with bus drivers. Bus driver X has written extensively about this. There needs to be a way, one, the fact you have a foot-operated communications thing is just nuts. I mean, you wouldn't decide that. You wouldn't think of, hey, let's design the most dangerous thing in the world. Let's communicate, but what TfL will say, well, they're not supposed to be operating those in
That's
motion.
right, that's
But
what I
then
said.
oh, come on, if your entire job is dependent on answering that thing because you're onboarding, you're going to answer it. And it happens all the time. All the time. So one of the things with Bus Driver X is really pushed on this whole thing with communication. One, take away sound communication completely. Make some sort of signal device that basically when it comes up when the bus is stopped or when it's safe, when it reads that it's safe. I mean, in principle, iBus communication people, the controller should be able to see whether the bus is in motion. They contact him anyway. He said there's all kinds of information comes over you can't hear.
Yeah.
Forget about sound. A simple signal-based thing that when the bus is stopped and deemed to be safe, the bus driver can communicate, I can receive communication now, and then it comes through. And it's very simple, this all can be done easily. The second thing is give bus drivers the ability to, and they had this Give a Beat campaign for for cyclists to identify dangerous junctions just through clicking something. I think bus drivers having that technology, be able to identify where they think junctions are dangerous. Just a little click, then boom, boom, would be simple. So the iBus communication fact, that has to change. It's totally dangerous and danger causing. And a friend of mine, his daughter was passenger, knocked unconscious as a result of iBus communication. The bus driver was getting harassed by the controller, and it totally distracted them. It's like getting it's a mobile phone in the cab. iBus is the equivalent of a mobile phone in the cab. Now TfL will come back and say that's completely outrageous. Fact, if you have someone talking to you on thing, and your job is dependent on that, I mean, I don't have my mother-in-law calling me when I'm in the car. Lastly, this pedal confusion issue has to be looked at. Has to be looked at. if you look at it, the kind of this is 2 a month last year, over 2 a month last year. You know, I'm sorry. When TfL says, you know, every single one of them is the fault of the driver, just don't lie. Sorry, statistically it's too many. More importantly, when you have boarders buses not working, because you've got the back door, oh look, there's something wrong there. And lastly is CCTV evidence. I think there's a huge issue with CCTV. The fact that the bus company is responsible for maintaining it and then erasing it after 10 or 15 days because of I guess information protection or something is absolutely insidious. I only say this because the bus that was none of the bus. There's not a single bus camera in my incident that shows me being hit. No, intriguing though. And then the bus that would have seen it, which is in the film, they deleted it after 7 days because they had to. You know, call me crazy. So, like I said, I am one of thousands. That's my experience. It was suboptimal.
And also, you were in hospital in a coma and stuff, so within 7 or 10 days, you would have been able to seek it, if you see what I mean, in any case.
The first thing when I woke up, after I could speak after a couple of weeks, wasn't to say get the TV evidence.
Exactly.
Very remiss of you to
But you can see in serious cases, there is a time delay, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And more importantly, and this is where I think one of the critical issues for safety, TfL, let me reiterate, does not have a bus operator's license. So why is it the first port of call to handle people's complaints about a specific bus? TfL does not publish the name of the bus operator on any of its webpages. There's no contact details, nothing for them. The bus operators are the people who respond. Why is TfL disintermediating the public from accessing the actual people causing or involved in the incident?
That's an interesting point actually, because somebody has come to me with an issue, and by the time she got the information from TfL as to who to complain to,
It was deleted. Boom. I would argue again that is a deliberate system. TfL, let's face it, acts like a trade association protecting the interests of its contractors instead of a public authority that has a legal obligation to ensure that its private and for-profit operators operate with duty of care. And the amount of evidence that goes to, and TfL seems very relaxed about it, that, oh, we're 100% sure that 48% of our funded organization gets hold of that evidence quickly. And like I said, this is not an organization that's behaving in a way that has the public interest at heart.
Well, thank you very much indeed for your evidence and for all your work in this area. You've given us lots of food for thought, building on stuff we've had from other meetings, so I think it's got us all thinking and will help shape some of our recommendations going forward. So thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
I hope your film Holly's doing is we get to see at some point. I'm sure that would be great. So thank you very much indeed for all your work. It's really appreciated, and you've helped get to where we are with TfL, which isn't as good as it should be, but a lot of it's been your work.
Long, slow bus ride.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Thank you.